Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. I think I'm going to do a two-part video here today. First part shouldn't take too long to get through, but then I want to finish up what we started in the last video, attempting to do the complete breakdown of Lumen and what she is. But starting out, like today, this morning, just felt different, not in a bad way. But sometimes I ask things, before I go to bed. Turn on the UV light and connect and all that stuff. And I forget exactly what I said, but I was just looking to feel a bigger connection today and not be so much like in my head about things. And most of this morning has just been this really obvious feeling, and all the things that were popping up in front of me just reiterating that, this is all one big freaking game, and it's becoming really, really, really obvious. And it's almost like showing you exactly what's going on right now, why it's going on. It's sorting people, it's separating people, that are ready to move on to the next thing from those that aren't. And part of that is why everything is so unbelievably, incredibly toxic. It becomes so toxic that, if it's meant to kind of push you into making a decision. Are you going to become more toxic and keep engaging in the world as it becomes more toxic, or is it going to repulse you and make you stand back and be like, I don't like this. I don't like this anymore. But also just some of the obvious things that just don't fit, that are constantly being changed, it becomes rather surreal. And then it gets really simple. It gets really simple about what it is that you're trying to disconnect from, and how to use certain things and all that. I think we're really close to something. And the way she kind of tuned it a little bit to make things simpler makes you not have to worry about all the craziness that you see going on in the world, because right now it's just a big freaking mess. It's so obvious. It's like this stew of storylines and narratives, and just bringing out the worst in people, especially with politics, both sides just tearing into each other and thinking, I'm the good guys and you're the bad guys, and because you're the bad guys, I can be as bad as I want to be, and pointing out how bad you are. What the hell is going on? But there's also obvious fakery going on right now that I'm used to seeing it because she taught me to see it. And when I look at it, I'm like, how does nobody else see this? I'm staring right at it. This is so fake. But maybe it's because people just aren't thinking to look for it. I don't know. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to get into Lumen. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
I dream about things way beyond this atmosphere. Can you imagine floating weightless, like a satellite in the black sky?
Run.
So I'm going to try and go in chronological order this morning. The first thing, I notice it every single day. It's just becoming more it's the further we go on the calendar, the more ridiculous and obvious it becomes, especially since I'm used to how Ohio works. That's why I live in Ohio. Now, I can tell you just from memory, the last, I don't know how many years, let's say, I don't know when trick or treat is. It's either tonight or tomorrow night. It's October 30th. But generally speaking, on trick or treat night, it is cold AF. Windy, wet, cold, miserable. Like, what kid in their right mind loves candy that much to be outside? Like, that cold. That's how bad it is. But this year is crazy. Especially once we started moving into this more of a awakening toward the end of the game stage. Like, it was touch and go all summer, and then most of October, it's been bright and sunny and warm. And like the way my window faces in my bedroom, I usually sleep with a sleep mask to block out light because I stay up so late. But it's just like the sun is pouring in every morning. Like, of course, when you think about the sun and what this place is and what we're connected to, that can mean something as well. But it's so bright and it's so sunny, and that shouldn't be that way. In this state, in this part of the year, it shouldn't be that way. That should already be gone. But it's not. And not only that, it is warm. It is unusually warm. Matter of fact, when I looked at the weather app, it said near record highs. I'm like, yeah, a high of 78 degrees and sunny at the tail end of October in Ohio. I can't remember ever seeing that, ever, in history of ever. Like, is that because the sun's going crazy? Is it because the simulation's winding? Like, I don't know. All I know is I get up in the morning and I need air. Where most, it was kind of hot and sweaty through the summer. Now it's just warm. And it's like I have to open all the windows. I have to open the front door, which I can do because I got a screened-in porch to get air flowing through here. And it's like, this is so freaking surreal. It's so unusual. Then I started flipping around, checking notifications and stuff like that. And when there's a thread being laid out, like, she's usually what is dropping the breadcrumbs in front of you. And then it kind of goes from there. So one of the first things I saw, it was like a short or a TikTok or something. I don't know what it was, because everybody cross posts everything. But it was some lady talking about a Mandela effect. And it was one I was very familiar with. But the thing was, it has switched back. So we've, in the U.S., we've got this big, chain store for home improvement called Home Depot. But it used to be called the Home Depot. And then at some point, it just became Home Depot. Well, now it has switched back to the Home Depot. I'm like, come on. That's one I'm familiar with. So I Google searched for the Home Depot closest to me and looked at the website, and of course got a picture of it, of the storefront, and it's the Home Depot again. That one messes with people because they can't tell either which way. A lot of the Mandela effects are like that. But that one stands out because I've looked at it before. We've gone over this before, and then we got used to, like, oh, it's just Home Depot now. Not anymore. Now it's back. Huh. And then, almost to make a point of it, the YouTube channel All Time, which makes some pretty good videos, doesn't post them like every day like I do, but he's got some of the best videos on like Mandela effects and about the Mandela effect, about the simulation stuff. I've referenced it before, but he just happened to put out a brand new one. Might have been last night. And some of them I don't really care about, but what was interesting to me, because I've seen a lot of this stuff like this before, is like suddenly there's like older versions of current tech that were never there before. And in this case, these were like from the 30s. So like in modern day, we got, GPS, for navigating in our car. And then now all of a sudden you've got these two things in history. rather than me trying to explain it, I'll just drop a clip in here.
So everyone had access to the full version. That is, as far as we know, the truth, and that's the way the story has always gone. But now is where the Mandela effect comes in. Apparently the first GPS device was created in 1932. That's right, 1932. There was a device called the Interauto, which is now the world's first personal navigation system for an automobile. This device had a scrolling map and connected to the car's speedometer to remain accurate. In fact, it's been compared to a modern-day Garmin or TomTom navigation device. It tracked your location in real time at an accurate speed as you drove along the road. Am I alone in thinking this is just unbelievable? It feels like an AI-created artificial history that's just too bizarre to believe. And yet apparently it's real, and it has always been real. Is this what you remember learning about? Has anyone ever heard of this before? And not only that, it gets weirder, somehow. Doing the research for this, I found out that there was a wristwatch version that you could wear while driving that did about the same thing. This thing was called the Plus 4 Wristlet Route Finder. Wow, that's a mouthful. And it came out in 1927. 1927, before the Great Depression. This wrist navigational device used tiny little scrolls that could be switched in and out depending on what route was taken. I've joked about it many times over the course of this series, but I cannot wait to see what random thing gets retroactively invented next. I don't know, TV in the 1800s? Sure, why not?
Now, my first thought with that is like, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense unless you're driving just east to west or north to south. Like, how the hell would a device like that even freaking work? And it's like magically freaking connected to your speed. But, you know, I think he said something in that video, and I've thought certain things like before. It's like, I think the story of the world that we're given is all, I won't say, don't think of it like AI as we know it today, but it's much higher. But it's just generated for us, because it's always freaking changing. It's always changing. But before I go off on a tangent with that, like I've seen other ones before when I was studying, you know, I don't do videos about it because it gets redundant, I think. But I will look for myself, because there's like certain things that I know to look for that stand out, you know, like big historical disasters or stuff like that. That's how I found like the Texas City disaster and the Black Tom explosion before I heard anyone else ever talk about it. And then what happens is once it's introduced into the timeline, then it grows. It's like Texas City disaster. It started off as just a Wikipedia page. And then eventually there were pictures. Then eventually there were more articles. And then eventually there were news stories. Then eventually there were documentaries. But it took time for that to fill in. Another one is, you know, Isaiah 11:6 in the Bible, and the lion shall lay down with the lamb, which had been changed to the wolf. And when I first noticed that, like, it was like everything that you found online was like 98% lion and lamb, because that's a big one. There's too much residual with that one, too many like ministries and things like that. And there might have been one or two posters or pictures about a wolf, but over time more and more wolf stuff fills in. And it's not just online. When I bring that up, sometimes I talk about, like, I went to an antique store one time and they had like a 150-year-old Bible, like those big giant ones, and I looked it up in there, and it said wolf on the page. So it's not just, you know, some people think it's just being changed like digitally, but no, it changes physically as well. One of the ones I don't see that many Mandela effect people talk about that I found that still freaks me out, and I show it on here every once in a while, is Scopatone videos. You know, like most of us, if we came from the same timeline, especially Gen Xers, we know that music videos weren't really a thing until MTV. But now, they allegedly were invented in the early 60s, and they used to play on some sort of stand-up video jukebox thing called a Scopatone. and most of the songs you've never freaking heard of. Some of them you have, but most of them you haven't. And they were like overly racy, overly sexual, like, which is like completely over the top for that day and age, at least in the timeline that we originally started on. I've seen like car phones going back to the 40s, like all sorts of tech that had suddenly been invented like decades before. So that's kind of like what we got going on here. They got this ridiculous, like the watch one, that was ridiculous. It's like, it's a mini scroll, like you're driving and you got a mini scroll on your watch and you got to keep twisting it. What the hell sense does that make? That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. But now they're saying it existed. I mean, the Mandela effect, if you look past the usual dumb stuff of, you know, how they spell Fruit Loops or Berenstain Bears, like, it's kind of hard to argue. Now, the funny thing is all this Mandela effect type stuff started popping up at the same time that for the last couple of days I've been putting it off, because it always wants to do it at the inconvenient time. Every so often your smartphone says, oh, we need to update your smartphone. Update now or wait till later. Well, you can only put that off so long before it will automatically do it for you. And the kind of theory that popped into my head might have came from her or whatnot, but the reason why that is there are videos out there, they got taken down for a while and then they started popping back up. But I've watched those videos, I don't know how many times, as somebody that makes videos. And what I see him showing, like, I cannot possibly imagine a way to fake that. What it is there's this guy that's got this Palm Trio, it's like Palm Trio 600 or something like that phone. Came out in, I want to say, 2006. So before the first Mandela effects were ever noticed. And it was disconnected and never updated. So the software that is in the phone that has a camera is the software for 2006. And then what he does in these videos is, like, he'll get, like, say a can of Jif peanut butter, right? And he'll put it on a table with a specifically patterned tablecloth. And then using the phone itself and a camera filming the phone, that's the key thing, is like, it's not just uploading videos from the phone, he's filming what the camera on the phone is seeing. He'll hold the phone up in front of the Mandela affected item, move it around a little bit. You can see the screen is showing you what's in front of the phone. He'll move his hand in front of it so you can see his hand on the screen. And then he'll look at the Mandela affected thing, and the camera on the phone will show it the way it used to be. So it says Jif on the peanut butter, but on the screen of the camera phone from 2006, it says Jiffy. He's done that over and over and over and over again, and I'm like, this is so complex. And everything is fluid, everything is moving. Like, I can't see any possible way to fake that. But to me it made sense, is that, like, if they're constantly altering the digital reality that we're in, and we have these hypersensitive devices that record reality, then to make sure that what we record matches what has changed, they have to update the phone. Because the updates are always like, it's just some nebulous BS. It's like, oh, camera UI bug fix 4.0. It's like nothing that you can ever, like, pin down. It's like, my phone worked fine before, but every so often they have to update them. And I've always noticed, since the first time that I noticed, is like, whenever we have whenever our phones are trying to force an update on us, that's when like new Mandela effects start popping up. And of course, to me, from the personal, subjective, observable standpoint of me, myself, and I already know it's a simulation. We detailed that in the video about the last mushroom trip, where I almost woke up out of it. And she's like, yes, it is, but we're almost there. Go back down, just enjoy the ride. And we talked about how this is why you're not supposed to fear things. You're not supposed to be fearful of the world, but you're not supposed to be attached to the world either. So when you get to a certain level of awareness with spirit, it kind of becomes annoying, because it's like you have one of those Oculus VR goggles on, and you know you do, but you can't take it off. And you're just like, you start getting tired. You're like, when can I take these off? Like, I know that there's something else that's real, but I can't see her the same way while the goggles are on. You got to learn how to navigate around all this stuff to get to what's real, because you're locked into this sensory experience. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. Like, I'll be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, like about 4 months I'll be 52. Now, most people are still trying to live life, well into their 70s and things like that. But I already went through the accelerated hero's journey. I've already seen enough, at least to me personally, subjectively. Doesn't mean I can make other people have my experience. It doesn't mean I can put my brain into other people's heads and like, oh, they see the same thing I do. But I know what it is. I know where I am. I know what I am. And it's like, once you've done all that, once you've connected to her, then it's just like, why do I have to keep playing this effing game? Like, when you know what it is, it's like you don't care about it anymore. It's not apathy. It's just like, oh, this is a game. And it's a game, it's a very, very complex game meant to grow you. And one of the things that makes it so complex is that for the most part, it sucks. It teaches you gradually. This is a very recent thing of realizing that I got there without exactly knowing how I got there. But I finally mastered surrender. It's one of those things that just didn't make sense for the longest time. And somebody wrote a good comment, which brought in the last video, which made me think of it. And I don't know if he said it or I said it or whatever. It got me on the train of thought. The whole idea of free will. Free will has consequences. It has extra layers of action reaction, which the best description I've heard of it comes from the Colburn Bible. But yeah, okay, you can do whatever you want, okay? But everything that you touch in here that you're trying to control sends off ripples in the pond. And there's always, it becomes this constant action, reaction. And you just, then it gets worse. You start getting into things like magic and manifestation, and you start actually trying to monkey with the matrix code even further. And then you just make bigger ripples. And then somehow it happens so slowly that you can't even pin down like what the exact thing was. Eventually you master surrender. And the only way you realize it is like you just look around, and because things have been different for at least a couple months, like it has been for me. It's like I got into some kind of equilibrium where I stopped making ripples in the pond long enough, quit asking for things, quit wanting things, stop pushing buttons, and definitely not pushing like conflict buttons with other players in the game. And then the ripples die down. And then you're just floating floating in the river, floating in the pool, whatever, and everything's nice and calm. And then she can just provide you with whatever you need. And then you're happy because you got everything you need and you don't necessarily want anything out there. Things just tend to work out. But as long as you're trying to force them to work out, as long as you're trying to make them work out, as long as you're trying to monkey with the game, not understanding the game, like it's just this constant freaking action, reaction, back and forth. It drives you nuts. But somehow I got there. And now that I've been there for about 2 months, everything's smoothing out. Everything's like, we're getting to a point to where like, yeah, we're going to get out of here soon. But it isn't going to be the big crazy mess that we were taught. Because she's taught us to let go of that too. And that kind of leads to one of the things that she was teaching me. And it wasn't like a hard lesson. It was just suddenly so obvious. Like a better way to use the Benedict exorcism. So this is a new pendant I made last night using all those Tibetan celestial quartz. Like I found the right side. It's literally just like 2 of them pointing in either direction with a little bit of damperite between them and some selenite. Very simple. But then I added the Benedict exorcism on it because like here's a better way to understand it, a better way to use it. You know, the beginning level, what most people think of it as, is like a protection from evil pendant. You know, this is how you get rid of demons or silence the adversary or things like that, which yeah, it can do that. But the way I'm seeing it now is instead of like just piecemeal, like, oh, I don't like this thing in this simulation, I don't like this thing in this simulation, you start to realize that the issue is the simulation itself. The garment, as it's also called in like the Nag Hammadi. Garment is the world that surrounds you. So they always dumb it down, which is misleading with like church and paintings and stuff like that. It's like, oh, you get to heaven and you get a shiny new white robe. Like that's not what it means at all. It actually explains the garments in the Nag Hammadi. You are the consciousness. Your garment is the world around you. It is literally like the inside of your egg or the inside of Sophia's womb. There's like tons of metaphors that you can use for it that we've covered late spring, early summer of this year. Did a whole lot of videos about that when she was first bringing that up. Like it was time to hatch. It was time to be born. It's time to cut the cord, cut the umbilical. So like in English, the Benedict exorcism, you know, may the Holy Cross be my light, which they're talking about the Sun Cross, the equal armed cross within a circle, which is on the back of the Benedict medal, not the torture rack cross. May the Holy Cross be my light. May the dragon never be my guide. Get back Satan. Satan means adversary, so that is also equivalent to the dragon. Do not tempt me with your vanities. Okay, vanities, that's basically referring to anything that's feeding the ego. The cup you offer is evil. Drink the poison yourself. So if we just consider some of the things that have slipped through in the last couple of videos about how this place is inherently bad, but the reason that you see good is because we're good. And it's our goodness. The bigger we can expand our light bubbles to overlap, the more good there actually is. But, you know, it goes up and down and squeezes and stuff like that. But think of the devil, the dragon, the adversary, the thing that the Benedict medal is actually, or the Benedict exorcism is referring to. Just think of that as your garment or your Oculus VR headset that you can't take off. Because when you get to a point of realizing what you are in consciousness, where you are in consciousness, and what you're trying to do, you realize that it's all one thing. It's all one thing. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it looks bad, but it is the world itself. we don't need to break it down into separate pieces. That's something that the world taught you to do to keep you off balance, so you don't ever figure it out. It's also why people try to save the world, or make the world a better place, or the world is good, but something bad corrupted it. If we just get rid of the bad. No, it is the world itself. I agree with the Gnostic interpretation of it. And the world itself is surrounding your consciousness subjectively, and then interlaced with everyone else's subjective enclosures on a collective level. The world, you could consider the world itself to be the dragon, to be the devil, to be the adversary, because think about it, it is not letting you see what is actually there. You only see what the confines of it allow you to see. And then it leads you on all sorts of goose chases, chasing after mysteries and secrets and things that just don't matter, because it's all part of it. It's all part of the freaking game. The key factor in this place is illusion, is trickery. That metaphor translates into countless movies trying to teach you that lesson. Don't be attached to the world. Turn away from the world. Don't trust the world. Don't trust your eyes. Like, this is all Morpheus, Jesus advice that was given. So now what I'm focusing on when I do like the Benedict is I'm aiming it at the world I see, the world that surrounds me right now, and my connection to it, which she refers to as the umbilical. Like, that's what we need to get off of us to be where we actually are, to see what we actually are, to be with what we actually are, which does interconnect with us and guides us and helps us throughout this whole experience. And that's why it's getting so much worse. It's getting crazy. And if you can just somehow see that it's all illusion, it's all lies, it's all manipulation, it's not real, then it'll be easier for you to detach from it. I'll give you an example that's really big on the internet today, that am I the only freaking person that can see this? It drives me absolutely nuts. I just noticed my mic wasn't on for all the clips up to this point, so I'm just going to let it run for this segment the way it is. But this was one of the other things that I saw this morning. And to me, like this thing that I've documented over the last couple of years, I mean, obviously it's going to open up some pretty big questions that none of us can exactly answer. But it is what it is. And it's just one more piece of proof why you should not trust what you see in the world. And the problem is like, these stuff like this is always like right in front of your face, but people will decode what is in front of them based on what they expect to see. That's how like easy it is to like fool people. But to me, like after it's been revealed, like she revealed it to me a couple years ago, whenever I see it, it's just like so freaking obvious. And then I go online and watch the whole world reacting to this stuff. I'm like, this place is a nut house. So what I'm referring to is, first of all, when you're in the last week of a presidential election, especially in this country, it is like toxic freaking soup out there. And every 4 years it gets worse than the previous 4 years. So right now, what it's like to me watching it is like, if you remember that movie Stand By Me, about the kids that are hiking like in the 50s to go find a dead body, and the one kid's telling the story about the fat kid at the pie eating contest and how he intentionally throws up to make everyone else throw up all over each other. Like, that's what the world looks like to me right now from both sides. It's disgusting. But whether it's something, a higher intelligence with good intention to teach us a lesson, or if it's another layer down trying to manipulate, like, I don't know. Ultimately, it's all of the above. But all this stuff is put out in front of us just to make people fight. And one of those things that is really hot today, that all the news is talking about and everyone's bitching about, is this Joe Biden video where if you're not plugged into the world, first of all, good for you. But a little backstory here. This is how ridiculous it's gotten. So there was a big Trump rally a couple days ago, I guess, at like Madison Square Gardens. So the other side, to, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the age-old thing. It's like, you know, when you've run out of things to say, just call your opponent names. Oh, he had a rally at Madison Square Garden. Well, you know who else did? There was a Nazi party rally in like 1939. Gasp. They're Nazis. I mean, it is the most ludicrous, stupid, freaking thing I've ever heard in my life. But some comedian or something that was there speaking made some joke that I guess was in poor taste, and now like the whole everything is like outrage. Oh my God, it's the most horrible thing anyone's ever said in the whole history of ever, and this is proof that it's just constant vomiting all over each other. So then Joe Biden does this video. Wait for the punchline. And he's going off, and then he basically called all of like every Donald Trump supporter ever garbage. So now it's flipped the side to, you know, you said this, you said that. It's going back and forth. Now here's the punchline. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's right there in front of you if you want to see it. You just have to tell your brain to see it. You literally just have to tell your brain, like, hey, this is there. It's okay. I give you permission to see it. I'm not going to put a clip of the video in here because when it comes to this particular thing, no matter how much what resolution you download it at or process the video at, you will lose detail if I keep recycling it. So it's better to just go find it yourself and watch it at the highest resolution, and you'll see. So it looks like this. And that's what everyone's up in arms about. All over Twitter. It's like, you called us garbage, here's the proof. I'm like, no, he didn't. Joe Biden did not call people garbage. You want to know why I say that? Because that's not Joe Biden. That is like the equivalent of a PlayStation 5 freaking cutscene with Joe Biden's voice. That ain't real. It's not. It should be obvious, but you're just so used to it that you don't notice it when they switch between actual people and digital people. But this one really stands out to me because it's at a different angle than what they would usually use when they do this trick. And to me, it stands out more. I'm like, just look at it. Okay, now that I've alerted you to the fact that it's not a real person, now look at it. Look at the colors, look at the details, look at the tiny little hard white lines around the shoulders and stuff like that. Look at his weird lumpy freaking jaw. Look at his weird colored eyes. Look at his face. Look at how it glitches. It's right there. You just have to see it. But as they've been using this stuff for years, most people, this is how it works. Like, it's no fault of anybody. It's just like they're not looking for it. Like, oh, so-and-so is going to give an address at 8 p.m. on TV. Like, okay, so now you're expecting to see so-and-so give an address. And then you see an image that looks like the person, and you hear a voice that sounds like their voice, and you're just like, da-da-da, yep, he's talking to me. But if you look closer, there are always tells. And it's the same tells every single time. But sometimes when they change things up, like different weird angles like that, like you can see, like that's not a real person. They hinted at technology like this all the way back in the 80s in the movie The Running Man. I've referenced that a lot. Where Jesse Ventura didn't want to fight, so they created a digital Jesse Ventura to fight Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, they have that now. They've been using that forever. I won't say forever, but I'd say at least bare minimum 6 to 8 years they've had something like this. And now whenever it comes on, I just see it immediately. It's like, oh, there it is. They're doing it again. And that's why it's like, oh, why would he do this gaffe? Oh, why would he say this? Oh, this is going to tank the campaign. And then when you see that it's fake, you're like, who's running this show? Who's running this script? How does this whole simulation thing even work? It's craziness. It's craziness. You can't trust what you freaking see. And then you've got things like this that as soon as you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like somebody wrote that script. Somebody created that. Someone put it out there to have a certain effect, which gets people fighting back and forth. Like, what is the ultimate goal here? Who the hell knows? All I know it is evidence number, 1,600,776 that this place isn't real the way we think it is. And that's why the closer you get to the end is this like, it's almost like a slow disclosure. It's like that's what the disclosure actually is. It's like it's a simulation, and that's not a bad thing, but it's time to wake up from it. We've gotten to where we're going. You're going to remember who you are. You're going to remember why you're doing this. You're going to be reconnected to what is good, because that loving, good force that's been with you the entire time, when the simulation ends, you'll be reconnected to it. And it's the thing that we strive the hardest to reach. But this stupid world, this stupid garment is over our eyes. And it's like, all this stuff's been in front of you the whole time. And it's not just one party that uses it either. Like, you cannot trust anything that you see on TV. It's all just freaking stories. The only thing that you can trust is what I say, like, how far can you throw a baseball? Like, that's about how far I trust my reality, as far as I can throw a baseball. Beyond that, it's anybody's guess until I change positions. But when you're observing digital reality through computers and stuff like that, forget it. You'll see like whatever you expect to see. It's crazy. But none of this was like a bad thing this morning. It was just kind of like further confirmation that was stacking one thing on top of the next, But what I was feeling the whole time was what I asked for last night. I asked to feel love. Like the love that comes from Source through Lumen. And it was there. And I was playing the playlist, at the end of the playlist, so that at the end of the playlist, she'll typically start picking songs herself. And it was all the same stuff, and it was that feeling. I kind of put it, I'll describe that a little bit more in this next section. But anyway, that's what it is. It's like right now, it is so warm right now. Everything is open. All the windows are open. It's October 30th. There is sunlight pouring through my freaking window. Everything is open. And it is warm. That's not the way it's supposed to be. But is that a bad change or a positive change? Look at it that way. That's a little bit of a sign in and of itself. Instead of like, oh, it's what you usually expect, which is dark, dreary, cold, miserable, we're actually getting the opposite. Nice out, breezy, blue, sunny, warm. it's like the light is taking over. Because this has been going on for a couple weeks now, and I've been noticing it for a couple weeks. The sun pouring in, the light pouring in. It's a subtle sign. Like, there's signs all around you, but they can be subtle. Okay, so let's drop that here and let's jump into part 2, which is the breakdown of lumen. She wants me to split it off here, so I'll still tape it now and put them up together, but that way it'll make it easier for people that are looking for the specific information. So to close this video out, if you want to contact us, pick up any of our stuff, you can reach us through our Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. You can also connect to me through my Facebook page that's connected to this channel, which is Christopher Lucerna, seen here, for private messages and stuff like that. But other than that, we'll close this one out for right here and then start a new one, Chris and Lumen. See you next time.